Good evening. I'm Alex Tremaine. I'm an old man that builds Gundam. Welcome to what I'm told is Thursday evening. I have no idea what time even is anymore. It's been a weird week. I've been on leave all week. I've been streaming, I think, most days this week. Again, I've lost track of days. Thursday evening is a regular stream for me, and therefore, by process of elimination, it's a stream that I've managed to miss the scheduled start time for. But I don't have to be in work tomorrow like I normally do, which means we're going to run a little bit later than normal to make up for it. So, in another change from the scheduled programming, whilst the intention was to go back to the Full Armor Unicorn Gundam for the scheduled stream, but I have developed over this week I have developed extra perfect grade kit to build. Arrived unexpectedly yesterday, courtesy of my wonderful wife. And as a result, I need to not be in a position where I have two kits on the go. And even though the perfect grade, the Full Armor Unicorn is a significant way along, there's also a lot more to the Full Armor Unicorn, I think, than there is to this ReZEL. So the intention here is to at least get the second leg built finished on this, maybe even the waist unit, finish the evening with an actual complete Gundam, though there is then the backpack, and the backpack on this model is substantial. There's a lot to it, and we'll see how far we can dig into that as well. So this is where we're starting from. Head, arms and torso here, and we have last stream I finished building the right leg, he says, checking, which is, has three enormous boosters on it and sort of this adjustable armor plate, three enormous adjustable boosters on it. So yeah, I'm really liking this kit so far. It's been a joy to build. And I'm looking forward to getting it finished off. But to help us in that, the legs, the feet are already built. Let's get this leg out of the way. The other foot is already built. The outer armor panel with the boosters on is already built. The shin armor is already built, the knee joint is already built, and the hip joint is already built, and this bracket that holds this armor is already built as well, because it just had us build a whole bunch of two of everything early on in the process. So we're just going to dig straight into the left leg. And see how far we get this evening. I hope everybody is continuing to have a lovely week. For people who've not been on leave all week, it is approaching the weekend, and I hope you all have lovely things to look forward to for the weekend. For myself, today I think is day 7 of 10 days not being in work, including weekends, and I have spent today playing Control, which I picked up from the Humble Monthly, but they don't call it that anymore. The Humble Choice bundle. Earlier in the either end of last week or beginning of this week. Anyway, picked it up recently from the Humble Bundle, and I have very much been enjoying that, so I think there's going to be some time spent doing that tomorrow as well, though in addition to that I also have to go to the tip tomorrow. Which will be good, because we have a lot of cardboard that needs to be got rid of. But that's fairly early in the morning. I mean, early in the morning for what is essentially a non-work day. I think I've got that booked for like, it's like 9 o'clock, something like that. So it's not desperately early, which is good. Because that'll mean that once that's done, I have the rest of the day to, I will be up and moving, and then I will have the rest of the day to do with as I please, which would be quite nice. Not that I wouldn't have the rest of the day to do with them as I please, but if I've got to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning, or rather if I've got to get up to get to the tip for 9 o'clock in the morning, what I won't be is still asleep at 11 o'clock. And therefore I will actually make use of some of the morning in a way that I possibly wouldn't have done otherwise. So J2, where is Sprue J? Sprue J is this one, so we need J2 and J3. 2 and 3. So my weekend's going to be a bit of a sort of swings and roundabouts thing. Don't know exactly what to do with it, other than be depressed that I've got to go back to work on Monday. But that's just the way of things, sadly. That's just how it all works. So, having a look at the other leg there, I don't think any of this is going to be visible. Once it's on. Let's have a look at the back here. No, nothing here is going to be visible nub mark wise, so I'm not going to care too much about cleaning them up properly. Quite happily do the wet and dry where it's visible, but if nobody's ever going to see it, then all it needs to be is clean enough that it's not going to interfere with any other parts that need to be fitted to it. So this goes this way round. This fits in position like so. That's good. This goes in like so, and then the ankle goes interesting. Sorry. The ankle goes in position like that. And then this goes in place like so. And suddenly it actually looks like the beginnings of a leg, which is nice. So what's next? Next is G9, C3 and C4. So C3 and C4 are here. We're going to need C1 and C8 as well, so we're going to take these off the sprue because they're really obvious what they are. Going to need them very shortly, and I think that finishes this sprue off, which gets it out of the way. There we go. So yes, weep for sprue C, for it is no more. What else do we need? G9. Sprue G is nowhere near dead yet, so let's grab G9. Hey Shitty, how's it going? You lurk away. I'm assuming you're catching up on the wrestling. If anybody here is unfamiliar with Shitty, he is another Gunpla build streamer. He also streams video games. He's just finished a high-grade Evangelion build, one of the 90s kits, and he's streaming Persona 5 Strikers, I want to say, for his game streams. I don't imagine there is anybody here who isn't familiar with Shitty, but just in case, and you know, somebody might be watching this on a VOD somewhere. I'm told that happens sometimes. So, because I don't paint these models, due to having a terrible hand for painting, and due to not having for sort of hand painting, and due to not having an airbrush to do things the quick way, I tend to try and get the finish on visible nub marks, or nub marks that will be visible. I try to get the finish fairly smooth, and I have recently taken to using these using wet and dry paper. I use 1500 grit to start with, and then 7000 grit just to get the finish on it. And the effect is pretty good, in my opinion. So this is going in the back here to match the pipework at the top. And then we're on to C3 and C4. For those who care about such things, the cutters I'm using are Voltkins, because I keep spending all my money on kits and not on god hands. I possibly should get some god hands at some point, but I don't think I'll bother until these die. These have been frankly quite satisfactory for the money I paid for them, and Mr. Amazon delivered them very quickly, so, which was what I needed at the time, was for them to arrive promptly. They're single blade cutters like the god hands. I have no doubt the god hands are better, but these do the job. So yeah, I've been playing Control today. It's a nice sort of you can tell it owes a lot to the SCP Foundation stories. I don't think there's any argument there that that's where it comes from, you know. And by the same token, to the new weird as a genre in general. But it does it in a very satisfying way. I've been very much enjoying it. It's got solid mechanics. The story's popping along at a nice pace. It feels like they're giving me goodies at a good pace, both sort of skills and upgrades and additional lore information. And you know what, I'm a sucker for additional lore. It makes me happy, so that's always good. I've been rather enjoying it from that perspective. As well as the gameplay. It's got some fun characters. All of the characters have believable motivations, which is nice. you know, that's a shockingly unreliable facet of characters in this day and age. Believable motivations. So it's always nice to call it out when they exist. There we go. There we go. That's the sort of nice clean surface I'm looking for with when dealing with num marks. So yeah, pretty happy with how that's come out. This one goes on that side. A video earlier today, haven't quite finished it yet. Somebody doing a critique, a thorough examination of the Watch Dogs series, all 3 games. I never played any of them. I've seen a playthrough of Watch Dogs 1 and it looked pretty fucking bad. Not sort of gameplay wise, I mean the gameplay was fine. It was that sort of Ubisoft open world GTA-esque thing, you know, that everybody knows what you mean when you talk about it, and it was fine. But the characters were just so obnoxious, and the story was oof. The lead character that kind of was just a thug who thought he was a hero, but the story also thought he was a hero. I mean, that's, you know, a thug who thinks they're a hero is an archetype that can be interesting if the story and the reader, player, whatever, are in on the joke, you know. But it played it dead straight. It genuinely thought this character was a good guy, and they really weren't. So yeah, and you know, there are other ways to get that. There were other games that would do essentially the same gameplay. I mean, realistically, if I wanted that gameplay, I'd just go back and play. I'd just go back and play Saints Row 3 or 4 again, you know, because they're actually good. But apparently the second game, much better on the character front, but still pretty much exactly the same mechanically. The second game sort of happened almost without me noticing, and I knew very little about it, other than at one point I was startled to discover that it existed. Which I think was actually at the point where they were first advertising Watchdog Legions. Watchdog Legion, rather, was when I discovered that Watchdog 2 existed, because people were talking about how it was the third game in the Watchdog series, and I thought, really? Third game, you say? That seems unlikely, but okay. It turned out it was indeed the third game. I just completely missed the second game existing. But of course, between Watch Dogs Legion being announced and Watch Dogs Legion being released, it turned out that Ubisoft was even worse than we thought it was in the first place, and that it was a place full of bad business and sexual predators, yeah, I no longer have any desire to give Ubisoft any money. But I was interested in how the series actually turned out in the end. So the person doing the review came down on the side of, if you're going to play any one of the three games, play the third one, because play the second one rather, because it's the least flawed, which is, least flawed is very rarely a good starting point, If the best you can say about something is that it's the least worst, then that's not great. Right, so that's the hip joint on, which means it's time to fit the outer armour. In the meantime, I have a good game to play from a company that I'm at least not aware of any problematic issues with. I don't think there's been any skeletons that have come out of Remedy's closet recently. Needless to say, I am ready for the world to kick me in the teeth on this front, but I'm not aware of any issues with Remedy. And I have very much enjoyed some of their games in the past. I was a big fan of the Max Payne series. Never played Max Payne 3, but I played the first two, and I love Max Payne 2. It's probably not aged terribly well, but it just had such an unapologetically, both games had an unapologetically film noir feel to them. They just took the cliches and ran with them, and that was fine, Cliches are cliches because they work, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with just playing into the cliche. Why not? And Max Payne certainly did that, and as I say, I particularly enjoy Max Payne 2. think Max Payne 3 was a different developer. Though I've heard nothing but good things about Max Payne 3, I will admit. Or at least nothing but good things from sort of people whose opinions I at least partially trust. I know that it had a mixed reception upon release from across various members of the internet. No, absolutely. They become tropes because they're things that work, that people latch onto and understand. They're a shorthand, and it allows you to skip some of the. It allows you to skip to the good stuff. That's not to say that some tropes have not aged poorly over the years, but. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that film noir is actually, or film noir, the pulp noir detective story, whatever medium it's in, is you can assemble all the tropes, but you've got to assemble them right. I've read some very bad noir detective stories that have hit all the. They've faithfully used all the tropes and used them without understanding their purpose in the greater theme of the story and why they work and why they're used in the first place. And that, that's the same across all genres. If you don't understand the purposes, if you don't understand the purpose of the tools you're using, you're going to misuse the tools. Right, there we go. So this is going on this side. Like so. And then we fit this like so here. Oh yeah, I mean, I love Cosmic Horror stuff, I really do. But it's so easy to do it badly. I have been disappointed by more Cosmic Horror stories than I can count. I would say that even some of Lovecraft's stuff is, I mean, obviously Lovecraft stuff is, you know, in a lot of cases problematic in many other ways, but even some of his stuff doesn't hit the mark, sort of just on an exclusively Cosmic Horror front. But when Cosmic Horror hits the mark, it really is good. I have become fond of Cosmic Horror being hidden within other genres over the years, particularly sci-fi. What you think is a straight space opera or a hard sci-fi story turning out to be Cosmic Horror, I kind of enjoy. I mean, even that's turned into a bit of a cliche, and there's been some real duds on that front as well. Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's when you work for hire, you work for hire. But yeah, I do enjoy sci-fi that takes that Cosmic Horror, or even just I've read some good sort of urban fantasy that has ended up being less urban fantasy and more sort of urban Cosmic Horror, which I guess is kind of essentially how Lovecraft stuff started out anyway. You know, his settings were broadly speaking contemporary in most of the cases at the time. That seems like a good combination to me. The example sci-fi wise I always point out is, or that I always look to as a thing that came so close and then managed to fuck it up so badly, as Event Horizon. I want to like Event Horizon. It's got the cast, it's actually got a pretty decent sort of first, I want to say 45 minutes to an hour of the film is actually pretty solid, and then it just goes off. Sam Neill gets to be full Sam Neill, which is always fun, but you know, as I say, I would have that film was so close to being good. Yeah, I had heard rumours that that there were drafts that were there are drafts of that film that were significantly better than what we actually ended up getting to see. I mean, I guess for all of its hokiness, 45 minutes of footage that never got effects. Wow. That's a lot. Good grief. I mean, it seems like an easy project to get cold feet on, you know, if you don't really understand what it is you have in front of you. Right, that's all good. So, this then needs to go on this side, like so. Oh, it'd be fantastic if it turned out some of it did. Because, as I say, that film is so close and yet so far. Oh, no. Let's do... Well, let's put this on. There we go. We need F11 and F12.
Falling in love with the drum. Falling in love. Falling in love with the drum. Falling in love.
Even without the effects, it would be interesting to see what the original intention was, you know. As I say, they had a fantastic cast for it. Samuel L. Jackson, Sam Neill. Can't remember who else was in there, but I vaguely recall there were other sort of like proper names for the time. I guess to a degree, the as dodgy and cliche as it is, Warhammer 40,000 went straight down the sort of the sci-fi with cosmic horror route, playing it, you know, dead straight and for laughs both at the same time. It's weird to look at. Oh, that's heartbreaking. imagine that's got to be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Right, so orbital, really? Oh, it kind of makes sense. I'll be honest, I don't remember too much about the soundtrack from the film, which is a shame because I love Orbital. Might have to go and look that up, see if that's available on Spotify. Well, I think Orbital's probably the tool for the job, particularly at that time, if that's what you were looking for. They would be able to do that for you. Yeah. It's quite alright. It's always nice to learn new things about. Always nice to learn new things about things you enjoy. Right. So there we go. That's the last pieces of trim there. So all we need for this leg now is the installation of the extra armor plate with all the rocket boosters on it. And indeed, there we go. Let's grab the, apologies for hitting the microphone there to anybody listening. There we go. Let's tweak these feet a little. Two legs ready to be adjoined to whatever the waist unit turns out looking like, I guess. Those are just going to have to go out of the way over there. Right. Rehydrate slightly. Right, new section of the model, new page. Waste unit. So we need PCK. This is sheet PC, and this is K. And we need I-25, I-26 and I-13. Where is sprue I? There it is. So I-25, I-26 and I-13. I-26 and 13. And we're going to need I-15 and 16 as well, by the look of it. So I'm going to clip those off now while I'm here. Close to finishing off that sprue. So let's start with this. Again, I'm going to hazard a guess that absolutely bugger all of this is going to be visible once all of the armour trim is on, so I'm not going to be doing a full polish on these parts because life is too short. Everything is clean faces. Well, that's about the most LA story that I've ever heard. In fact, isn't that just like almost literally taken from LA Story, the film, where everybody just starts shooting each other in rush hour traffic on the first day of spring or something? Life imitating art. Yeah. I mean, that... Popular culture would certainly have me believe that that is just Thursday afternoon in LA. I don't know. But equally, popular culture would have Americans believe all sorts of things about the UK. But not strictly speaking true, so... Let's do this way around. So this lives in here. This goes here. Looks like this part may actually turn out to be visible at the end of the process, so we're just going to clean this up a little bit. I mean, not everybody in LA can be like that. Not even a large proportion of them, surely. In the same way that if you go to Liverpool, the likelihood is that you won't get the wheels taken off your car, despite popular culture saying to the contrary. I'd like to hope that that's the case anyway with regard to Los Angeles. Yeah, and Liverpool. I mean, I'm more confident about Liverpool, you know. I have been to Liverpool many times. I lived not terribly far from Liverpool when I was a small boy. I have some degree of confidence that that Liverpool is not actually how it's... that Liverpool does not actually live down to the stereotype of Scousers stealing the wheels off your car if you leave it for 30 seconds, you know. Right, so we have an upright and a hinged part. My parents would regularly park their car in Liverpool. You know, we would go when I was... We moved away from Liverpool when I was 8. we lived on the Wirral, which is the other side of the River Mersey, and we would regularly drive into Liverpool to go shopping. It's where my parents would buy my school uniforms for junior school and infant school, I guess. It's where we would just it was the local sort of city centre for us. I mean, there were nearer, smaller places, but it was only sort of half an hour's drive from where we lived to Liverpool. So oftentimes, if you wanted to go shopping, Liverpool was just your best bet, because it would be, you know, back in those days, the internet wasn't a thing. So if you wanted to get something, you'd go into the biggest shopping centre you could find, which would often be the biggest city you could find. And with Liverpool sort of half an hour away by car, it was by far the easiest thing to do. Right, K27 and another K27. K27. I haven't really been to Liverpool for a very long time, it has to be said. I think the last time I was there, I was in my early 20s. So I don't know what it's like now, but it's had that reputation since I was a kid. So I don't imagine it's super legit. I mean, it wasn't just shopping, we used to go to Liverpool for both my sets of grandparents lived there at one time. And neither sets of grandparents lived in particularly upmarket areas of Liverpool. In fact, they both lived in pretty down market areas of Liverpool. Or were at the time. I mean, they've probably been fucking gentrified by now. But, you know. That's what people do to places. Yeah. Should probably investigate that at some point. See if it has all been taken by gentrification. Probably. I mean, they're one of the most salubrious areas of town, it has to be said. I mean, I'm sure others would disagree, but I mean, there are definite downsides to gentrification, but I think of worse things to have had happen. Right, so that is all together. Okay, interesting. Right. We now need We now need to not headbutt the top down cam. What are we doing here? We are doing A12, F2 and A19. So A12 and A19. A12. I mean, my memories of Liverpool are pretty vague. Certainly my memories of Liverpool town centre. City centre, rather. City centre. It's a fucking city. A19. That is this one. Certainly once we moved out of the area, never really went into the city centre again. Went back to visit people, basically. I think we once went for a bit of a touristy thing. We went and visited the two cathedrals. Because, you know, apparently that's the sort of thing you do. I must have been in my early teens at that point. I did not give a shit about cathedrals. My parents tried so hard to turn me into somebody who liked going out and doing things. It was never going to happen. I mean, they really should have seen the writing on the wall. It would have saved them so much hassle. They kept trying. They kept trying. Did not work. And they just don't, they never got it. It's one of those things where it's like, you know. they love going out and doing things, and I just don't. And neither of us have ever understood the other. On that front. I regularly get texts from them about how they've gone outside and they've been for a 3-mile walk and they've seen the sunrise and they've taken pictures of wildlife, and I'm sitting here thinking, you left the house? But it's like, there's people out there and things and sunlight. Plants are having sex. I don't want anything to do with that. So, yeah. We continue to live not understanding. Which is fine, you know. Everybody is their own person. I understand that they're weird and like going outside and doing things. And I let them do that. It would just be nice if they would, you know. Show me the same courtesy. But we'll file this under old people are weird, and by old people I mean, you know, everybody really. Everybody's weird to one degree or another. I can't claim not to be part of old people anymore, but I'm certainly not part of, you know, I'm not a boomer. I guess that's probably the best thing that can be said about me. I'm gonna take not being a boomer as a win. Which way around is this going? That's what it's doing. And then this is going in here like so. And now we need I-14. Sprue I. I-14. Long ago, resigned myself to never understanding my parents. If there's anybody out there, you know, watching this who has not yet resigned themselves to that inevitability, then, you know, consider that resignation. I'm sure there must be some people out there who understand their parents, but I've yet to meet one. probably for the best, because I probably look at them like they were an alien. Right, so this clips on here. And then so that is incorrect. We need to do this. Okay. There it is. That's how it's supposed to go. There we go. That matches how it is here. Everything is level and horizontal. And then number 2, this goes on here. Is that fully in place? It is difficult to tell, but I think it is. That looks about right. There we go. So now we need to build A3, A8 and A10. So A3 is this little square here. A3, A8 is this tiny piece of yellow that I'm inevitably going to lose. And A10 is this. There we go. Right. I think we're going to start with this because I want to... So what's going to happen here? This is all going to sit inside there. So I do not need to worry about this. The entirety of this is going to sit in there like so, and then this is going to live in here. If I can get it to sit right. Oh, for God's sake, come on. Swivel round, that's right. Now just go in there. Do not fuck with me. Okay, I've got to be honest. That's pretty sweet. Right, now that we've got the tiny bits safely secured, let's clean this up. Right, there we go. So this then lives on here, like so. And then we need G15 and A9. Oop. G. $15. 9. There we go. I think we are approaching the end of this waste unit, which is good. So these surfaces are all going to be hidden. Because they are going inside there. These, on the other hand, are not going to be hidden and are going to need cleaning up properly. Weird thinking about being places one has lived. People are always very confused when I tell them I grew up near Liverpool. First thing I get is always, but you don't have the accent. It's like, well, no, I grew up near Liverpool until I was 8, and yes, my parents had some degree of Liverpool accent for quite some time after that, but I have lived, you know, over 3/4 of my life not near Liverpool. And much of that time, certainly over half my life, in a university city where there's not really, despite being in the Midlands, it's not overwhelmingly Midlandsy accents that I'm encountering on a day-to-day basis and sort of taking in. I mean, we do have some proper Midlandsy accents at work. For a long time I worked in the same office as a chap with the broadest black country accent you can imagine. But I tried very hard to avoid, you know, picking that accent up myself. There we go. That's well, that's a design choice they made there. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but that's absolutely a design choice that they put on the front of the waste unit of this Gundam. Wow. Okay. Let's do the rest of the waste units, which is A13 and 14 and G6 and 7. But yeah, even the people I work with are sort of broad cross sections of the country. Oddly enough, for quite a while there was a significant population of Yorkshire accents in the office. Weep for Sprue A, for Sprue A is no more. Yeah, for a long time Yorkshire accents were the most common thing to hear around the office. Not these days. But again, broadly speaking, most of my close friends are sort of friends I met in university, so they're from all over the country. We need F9 and 10. So I've never really picked up any of the Midlands accents. And I'm kind of glad of that. But what I have done is lost any, let's say, near Liverpool until I was 8. Then we moved to East Anglia for a few years. Then we moved to Wiltshire until I went to university in the Midlands. But even when we were living in Wiltshire, it was a town near an airbase, so there was a lot of people from all over the place there because their parents are transferred into the airbase. So, to my great joy, I have never picked up a Wiltshire accent. I can't even do a good fake Wiltshire accent, which I also consider a victory. I can fake a Scouse accent a little bit. It's not a good Scouse accent, it certainly wouldn't fool anybody who knows what they're talking about. Even my parents barely have Scouse accents anymore. I've always kind of liked the Scouse accent. I know a lot of people find it grating, and I understand that. I absolutely can understand why people do. But I've always kind of liked it. which almost certainly makes me kind of weird. My wife certainly is not a fan of the Scouse accent. I get very stern looks when I put one on. That may just speak to the quality of my Scouse accent, you never know. My parents, I think, actively tried to rid themselves of the Scouse accent. It's not quite. Certainly at the time we left Liverpool, or the Liverpool area, a Scouse accent probably still had more of more connotations to it than it does now. I guess certainly in the 90s, the biggest sort of popular culture. There was a soap opera, a popular soap opera set in Liverpool, which was a soap opera. I never watched it. It was a soap opera. So I can't really comment on that. But there was Lister from Red Dwarf would have been one of the more prominent portrayals of Scousers in media. He wasn't exactly a glowing recommendation, I guess. Depending on your perspective. Certainly from the perspective of the uptight middle classes. No, absolutely. And of course, come the late 90s, the other most well-known example of Liverpudlians would have been the Scouse idiots from Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and you know, again, not the greatest examples. I think there are very few characters out there that play into that play in with such totality to the Scouse tropes in popular culture as the idiot thieves from Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. Let's see if we can get this right. Yeah, I've not watched it in ages. I really should. It's a great film. Saw that in the cinema. Really enjoyed it. Saw that in a cinema in Leicester. We were visiting a friend in Leicester at the time. She'd graduated the year before and was doing a master's in Leicester. It's a good weekend, that. As I say, an excellent film. That film stayed in our sort of popular lexicon for some time. So many quotable parts of that film. Right, let's see if we can put this robot together. There we go. Yes, quite. I just knives, big fuck off shiny ones. Such a quotable film. To this day, I quote that film on a regular basis. Right. So what we have here is some legs, and we have a torso to go with it. I think we're going to have to bring these arms out a little bit. There we go. Right. We have a complete robot. I'm still unsure about this design decision here. Somebody knew what they were doing when they were making that decision, and nobody stopped them. And I guess that's fine, but it's still a decision that was made and permitted. But we now have a broadly complete yes, I mean it's you can't deny it's a memorable design decision, can you? Which one's the ReZEL, they say? You know, the one with the hook cock. Oh right, everybody will respond. That one. So we're just gonna tweak things around a bit so that it'll stand up nicely. Which it does. I'm genuinely pleased with how this is looking so far. This is a they really went to town on the design on this. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Right. But temporarily, whilst I'm liking what I'm seeing, I'm also putting what I'm seeing over here, where I can't hurt it, whilst I'm doing some more building. Where are we at? 9:30. Well, I think it's time for a break. We have a complete robot there, and we are now onto the backpack. And just to remind, well, these are the two options for the backpack unit that we have here. Just to be very clear about how much there is left to do. There is a lot left to do, and to let's just give you a These are the two configurations that it can end up being in. I haven't quite decided which one I prefer, but I think it's probably the A unit for me. I think we'll probably be going with this one. But everything will be built, and we'll work from there. So in the meantime, I'm going to refill my glass. I would suggest that everybody cycle liquids, and I will be back in 5 minutes-ish. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you very shortly. Welcome back. So, having taken a brief look at the instructions, it turns out I can't leave the finished unit over behind me where it's safe, because we're going to need it for part of this construction. Right, let's dig into this. We need sprue S. Sprue S is in here, if memory serves. We've cleared off some hangers here. I think this one can graduate to being on a hanger. So S 20, 22 and 23. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 19 through 24. Yeah, I don't think Guy Ritchie has ever really managed to equal Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. He's come close. Snatch was good, but it wasn't Lock, Stock. I think the closest he's come is probably one of the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films, but he's never done anything as quotable. Never done anything as quotable as Lock, Stock since. Cracking soundtrack on that film as well. Excellent soundtrack. Right. Is there anything else we need here? S17 and 18 are going to be part of this process as well, so let's grab those while we're here. Right, so let's get to tidying these up. Difficult to tell how visible any of this is going to be, so we're going to do at least a little bit of tidying up on these. I've not seen all of Guy Ritchie's movies, but damned if Lock, Stock didn't make me watch a few of them after the fact. As I say, enjoyed Snatch. Though it wasn't as good as Lock, Stock in my opinion. It came closer than it had any right to. You know. I don't think any of Guy Ritchie's other movies have held up the way Lock, Stock has. With the exception, as I say, the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films were shockingly good. Oh yeah, go on then. What you got for me, Miss Temperance? Oh yeah, no, they were absolutely. I was expecting nothing from those films, I'll be honest. Well, no, I was expecting bugger all from the first one, and it was just great fun. I think it's probably still one of the it's one of the best. It's one of the best Sherlock Holmes adaptations out there, I think. Certainly recent Sherlock Holmes adaptations. I still haven't seen Elementary. I've been meaning to watch Elementary. I like the idea of that film, of that series, and I want to have a look at it. I've heard good things. But as Sherlock Holmes adaptations go, I don't think I've had more fun with a Sherlock Holmes adaptation than the Guy Ritchie, the two Guy Ritchie films. They are chef kiss. They hold up to a rewatch as well. I enjoyed Young Sherlock Holmes. I haven't seen it for about 30 years though. 25 years probably. I think I must have seen it when I was a teenager, so 25 years or so, maybe a bit longer. I can remember what house I was living in when I saw it, which puts it in the sort of 25 to 30 year range. But I haven't seen it since, so I'm really not sure how or if that film holds up or not. But I certainly enjoyed it at the time. I thought it was pretty good. I think I must have been reasonably young the first time I saw it. I was about to say, I think I must have been reasonably young when I first saw it, because some bits of it scared the crap out of me. I don't know why the stained glass window coming to life scared the crap out of me, but it did. It's not really that scary a scene, but as I say, I think I must have been in the regions of 10 years old at the time, so certainly not much older than that. And the whole mummifying a woman alive sequence was not okay. That I struggled with. Yeah, absolutely. It was just... that was the bit I really had problems with. It didn't cause claustrophobia in me, but it did creep me the fuck out at the time. So, you know, I guess that's kind of what they were after, was creeping people the fuck out. And they hit the nail on the head with that scene, in my opinion. They hit the nail directly on the head. And thus was a small child creeped. Oh god, that must have been awful. So this goes in this way. Actually, let's just... check here. Yes, this is correct. And then... that is fitted like so. And then this sits in there. Right, we'll leave that there for the moment. Oh, hey Shitty, how was the wrestling this evening? Thinking about it, I think there's possibly a reason why I haven't watched Young Sherlock Holmes again in a long while. I think there may have been a conscious decision there. Looking back on it. Or an unconscious decision at least. It's like took me a long time to actually watch The Fly. Cronenberg's Fly? Jeff Goldblum. I think I'm getting the director right with Cronenberg. I was first introduced to that when I was young. We went to a yeah, absolutely. Knowing what you're expecting does help a lot. But yeah, when I was about, I can't remember exactly what age I was, but I was definitely in single digits, and we were at this. There was a place that did summer schools for adults that my parents took us to. It was residential. It was a private school that tried to raise money for themselves by having a few weeks of summer school for people. And when I say summer school, it wasn't like school. It was fun things. So my parents would study things like stained glass window making, and they did calligraphy and all sorts of other things that at the time seemed very boring and adult, and looking back on it were presumably kind of cool. But kids were looked after as well, so you know it was sort of dawn to dusk kids stuff during summer. So there'd be like canoeing and climbing and sporty things for people who are into that kind of stuff, and abseiling and all sorts of other stuff. It was actually really enjoyable. Really enjoyed it at the time. But in the evenings they had film evenings for the kids to keep them occupied while the parents went and got themselves shit-faced in the bars. So this meant that there was perhaps not enough supervision as to what films were being shown to these children, because there was a wide age range of kids there. You know, there were kids everywhere from the sort of 6-7 years old all the way up to sort of like teenagers, and so the decisions about what films were being shown on the film evenings for people were made by the people with the loudest voices, which was often the older kids. And because all the adults were off getting shit-faced, this was kind of, to a degree, seen as an opportunity to watch films that they would not normally be permitted to watch. So this was how 7-year-old me, or single digits years old me, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but certainly not old enough me, ended up watching The Fly. Or rather, it's how I ended up watching The Fly right up until, I don't know if you've watched The Fly, or how recently you've watched The Fly, and how much you necessarily remember of The Fly. There is a scene in The Fly where Jeff Goldblum, who has already started his transformation, but it's not super obvious, goes to a bar, gets shit-faced, and gets into an arm wrestling competition. and he's secreting juices that from his pores, which make people what's the word I'm looking for? That digest the digest people. Essentially, it's the fly juices that where they excrete their digestive juices and then suck it back up. So he's doing this, and there's just a scene where he's arm wrestling, and the guy's forearm just snaps and bones are sticking out, and there's single digit year old me, and I'm like, and I'm off and find my parents, who, you know, I think they'd been at a wine tasting or a sherry tasting. They possibly didn't need me showing up at that point, but it was what they got, and it went, broadly speaking, fine for me anyway. But yes, following on from that, it took me until I was in my late teens to give that film a try again. So this is apparently where the tiny screw goes. So we now have to maneuver the arm joints out. And then tilt the chest backwards like so. And then we need said tiny screw. So let's tiny screw. So let's have a look at what sizes of screwdriver we've got. That's not a terribly tight fit. That's better. We'll give that a try. It might be too thick a So how is this going together? This is going this way up. In the back here, like so. No, you go back where you stay where you were put. So that all gets fitted there, and then this goes just inside. Can we get an angle where you can see that? go. Okay, it was the bones sticking out of the arm in the arm wrestling scene was the one that did it for me. That was just it. I was done. Miniature Tremaine was out of there. Go. It's all clicked in place, and then these can clip back in place as well. So looking at the having looked at the you saw one screw. There is one screw in this kit, and I had been wondering where it was going, and now I know. It goes from the inside through and holds this backpack on, or this initial frame for the backpack on. But it was a very tiny screw. Right, so having looked at some of the pictures, it seems that these jets are more supposed to be sitting like this rather than straight down the legs, which kind of looks badass. Anyway, right, so that's the tiny screw dealt with. I did not drop it on the floor. We will call that a victory, because always good to not drop tiny screws on the floor. So what have we got going on here? We have PCE. Now we're making two of this whole assembly. So we need PCE. PCE, CD, E, 6 of these on the sprue. Well, there were 6 of these. There are now only 2 left. So PCE, we need 2 P11s. Sprue P is down here. P11, that's this one. Prior to the I think that same year, prior to the fly incident, I also saw the first Highlander film, which again was educational for a very young boy. Not problematically so, as it happened on that occasion, which was how I ended up watching The Fly, I guess. Right, T11. Have I got sprue T, or is that actually the last? Sprues T. The last remaining bagged sprues. I'm going to swap them with sprue D, I think, because there's only one thing left on sprue D. I think sprue T is going to be more is going to last longer here, so we need T11 as well, which is this. I remember really enjoying Highlander. My parents were not impressed to learn that I'd seen it after the fact, but you know. Shit happens. What is childhood if not a series of small traumas? I think to this day the worst film experience I ever had was also one of the best film experiences I've ever had. Several friends of mine and I got together for a movie night. Yeah, that makes sense, Miss Temperance. But yeah, the combination best and worst movie experience I've ever had was a handful of friends of mine and I got together for a movie night. We got the biggest screen that we had available, which was at the time a mammoth 21-inch monitor, which tells you how long ago this was. We got ourselves settled on the comfy sofas in what was then the front room of the house I was renting with a few of the friends who were there for this particular movie night, and a friend of mine had brought the films because he was visiting from London. We hadn't seen him in a while, and he was like, "Okay, I'll bring the films." And we were like, "Excellent, good." So there we were, absolutely shit-faced because we'd been drinking all afternoon, and my friend had brought 3 films, which we were to watch in succession. And he did not pick the best sequence for us. If you were presented with Mulholland Drive, City of Lost Children, and Requiem for a Dream, the order in which you would not watch these films would be City of Lost Children, Mulholland Drive, Requiem for a Dream. That was the order in which we watched them. All 3 of those films are excellent. I would strongly recommend anybody watch all of those films. Do not watch them all together. If you're going to watch Requiem for a Dream, ensure that you have something really, really light-hearted to watch afterwards. Yeah, City of Lost Children kind of was good, you know. I mean, all three films were good. City of Lost Children was good. It sort of, it got us started. We were feeling pretty okay at the end of that. It was an enjoyable film. And then we did Mulholland Drive, and that was weird as fuck, and that was great, you know. And we were doing okay at that point. And then Requiem for a Dream happened to us. In the way that Requiem for a Dream happens to people. There was a bit of tonal... No, let's be fair. There was a lot of tonal whiplash there. And, you know, at the end of that film there were a lot of feelings. I mean, there were a lot of feelings all the way through that film, but particularly by the end of it, there were a lot of feelings. That we were, you know, that several of us were too drunk to really handle. And so we handled it by drinking more. And I think our solution was, in fact, to... Videodrome's great. I love Videodrome. It's a good film. I wouldn't choose to watch it regularly, but I don't regret having watched Videodrome. I don't regret having watched Requiem for a Dream. I'm never watching it again, but I don't regret having watched it. I kind of regret having watched it drunk straight after Mulholland Drive and City of Lost Children, but I don't regret watching it, but I'm never going to watch it again. I would struggle to come up with a film quite as bleak as Requiem for a Dream. And it's been quite a long time since I've been in the market for a bleak film, or bleak anything really. Yeah, I really enjoyed Videodrome. I think I saw Videodrome... First time I saw Videodrome was at university. It was at one of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Society's periodic video weekends. I saw that. I'm pretty certain. I think there was a bit of a body horror evening that evening, if memory serves, because I think that was also the evening that I first watched Tetsuo the Iron Man, which is an experience. That's a film I possibly would be willing to watch again. I'd need to be in the right frame of mind for it, but I think I would be willing to watch Tetsuo again. I never got around to seeing the sequel. They did have the sequel on that weekend, if memory serves, but I missed it. the luridly named Body Hammer, which I always thought was a cracking film name. Yeah, that's fair, Miss Temperance. I would not criticise anybody for not wanting to watch Requiem for a Dream. It is an astounding film, but yeah, it's a hell of a thing to put yourself through. It is a trial to watch that film. And I was like, you know, I thought I had a reasonable handle on... I knew it was going to be weird. It wasn't anywhere near as weird as I expected it to be, because the previous Darren Aronofsky film I'd watched was Pi, which is weird. Also very good. Strongly recommend people go see Pi. Content warning, trepanation. That might be relevant to some people. Excellent film though. R20 and 21, 22, 23. Doo-doo-doo. Twenty and 21, 22, 23. I mean, I guess auto trepanation is a hell of a content warning just in and of itself, but don't let that put you off the film. It's really good. It's about maths. Also has a fantastic soundtrack by Clint Mansell. Some fantastic drum and bass in that soundtrack. Requiem for a Dream, likewise, excellent soundtrack. Even if you never watch the film, go listen to the Requiem for a Dream soundtrack. It's really good. It's so good that they stole some of it for the Lord of the Rings Two Towers trailer. And we need PCA times 2, which is these. Thinking of weird ass 90s films that I really should go back and rewatch, and thinking of Mulholland Drive. I really need to rewatch Lost Highway again. I even have the Blu-ray and I need to rewatch it. Not a fan of Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway then, Miss Temperance? I can understand that. They're an interesting... they are both very... they are possibly the Lynchiest Lynch films that ever did Lynch. That's not fair. There was definitely some plot. It's just that, you know, there was some recursion and possibly, depending on your interpretation, a lot of dreaming and time looping and other things that were going on in there. I've seen arguments for several different interpretations of Mulholland Drive. I would say Lost Highway is actually the weirder of the two films. The time loop on Mulholland, the time loop on Lost Highway is particularly a thing. Lost Highway at least has some sweet Rammstein tracks on the soundtrack. In fact, there's another one. The Lost Highway soundtrack is just really good. I don't think I ever really sat down and listened to the I don't think I've ever really looked at what the Mulholland Drive soundtrack is like, but the Lost Highway soundtrack is, oh, there's some good stuff on that. I seem to recall I got the Lost Highway soundtrack just for the Rammstein songs, and then the rest of the album also turned out to be very, very good. That's fair. I Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive are possibly the marmitiest films ever to marmite. I mean, David Lynch is, with the exception, I guess, of The Straight Story, David Lynch is just kind of divisive anyway. I know just being a David Lynch film will be a turn off for many people, and that's fair. It's a stylistic choice and narrative choice that it makes a statement. Oh, Perfect Blue I saw at around about the same time as well. shitty. That was a cracking film, and I knew what I was expecting going into Perfect Blue, and it was. I actually saw Perfect Blue the same day I saw Lost Highway for the first time. Though I had a few hours and some food in between. Again, that was at a video weekend at the University Sci-Fi and Fantasy Society. You know, just in case anybody was under the misapprehension that I was a cool kid at university. Perfect Blue I would rewatch, and have rewatched. Excellent film. Interestingly, the other anime I might... No, I mean, it depends on the person. But I've definitely used Macross Plus to sell anime to the uninitiated before now. That's another thing I haven't rewatched in a little while, and another thing that has an excellent soundtrack. I mean, it's a Macross film, so, or a Macross OVA / film. I have both versions. So it was always going to, the soundtrack was always going to be good, even if not necessarily to everybody's tastes, but I particularly like I have a real soft spot for the Macross Plus soundtrack. Yeah, I mean, just Ghibli films in general are a good way to get people into get people past some of their misconceptions of anime. Certainly in the past. I mean, I think it's rarer for people to have those misconceptions these days. I think it was Totoro I got my parents to watch. Interesting, Laputa Castle in the Sky was the first one I saw. And that was when I was very young. Yes, I mean, that's possibly fair. I mean, it's not, as statements go, it's not an unreasonable statement, but it equally doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily carry the whole meaning also. Yeah, somebody expecting a Disney film and getting Laputa Castle in the Sky might be a bit of an experience, or Porco Rosso. That's an underrated one actually, Porco Rosso. I always did enjoy that. The Crimson Pig. Good film. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've ever actually seen a bad Studio Ghibli film. Right, so how does this work? So this goes on here. This goes this way round on here. And then this goes on there. And we have a sort of wing unit type affair. I think Totoro is still probably my favourite Ghibli film, though it does have a close. I think Castle in the Sky is a Laputa is a close second for me. I haven't seen that one yet. As I have mentioned previously here, I am very far behind on anime. There are so many things that apparently are really good that I never got round to watching. And so many things that I started watching that I never got around to finishing. I never finished watching MOAR or Serial Experiments Lane. And when last I checked, they were both now appeared to be quite difficult to get hold of. But that was before streaming became a significant thing, so I should really check to see if something like Netflix or Amazon or Crunchyroll or something has them. So I am going to unfortunately, I think this is all probably going to need properly cleaning. I shall keep an eye out for it. In which case, Miss Temperance, I also need to get hold of a new copy of or again, I keep saying this, I need to get hold of a new copy of, I need to find out if Hellsing is available on streaming services, because I had a copy of the OVA on DVD which I lent to someone, and I can't remember who I lent it to, and I haven't had it back, and that was like probably 10 years ago now, and I should probably consider it a dead loss. Oh, that's cool. Well, that solves one problem at any rate. I spotted Trigon either Netflix or Amazon recently. That was another thing I never finished watching. A friend I was living with had those on DVD. Or maybe VHS. But we ended up he ended up moving down south before we finished watching them. There's one thing I really appreciate anime for, and it's something that the Western world still hasn't really caught up to, is that they understand the importance of title music. For a TV series. It's a thing that sort of UK and America, the West, I guess, used to understand, but seem to have lost over the years. You know, when I was a kid, even now, I can, you know, hum the theme tune to every fucking TV show that I enjoyed. A-Team, Knight Rider, Airwolf. X-Men. You name it. There was good theme music, and everybody learned it because it was good and it was just earwormy. He-Man, Thundercats. I mean, I don't watch kids shows so much, but even adult shows were like had good theme music back in the day. Magnum PI. Fuck it, I mean Hawaii 5-0. I know I'm a lone fan of the original Battlestar Galactica, but by God did the original Battlestar Galactica have an excellent theme tune. Credit music on that was top notch. And theme music is all just really bland these days, except in anime, where it's fucking awesome. Still. Whoops. I know very little about Princess Kaguya. I really should go and investigate that. I keep hearing good noise about it, and you know it's Ghibli, so I mean there was no expectation that it would be anything other than good, but as I say, it's sort of the release of that kind of passed me by somehow. Oh, Kiki's delivery service would also be in contention for the upper end of the Ghibli spectrum for me. Always did like Kiki's delivery service. Right, so this goes this way around. This then goes in there. Then this goes here. This goes in here. And that goes on there. And we have two little wing units. So, what's next? Good grief. There is how many pages left of this? Still going. Right, so there's quite a bit more of this. It would appear like quite a lot more. But hey, what this will do is it will keep me busy. Though that's kind of what I was trying to avoid. Was It is a fairly substantial manual. I'm going to be honest here. There is a lot to this, and we've only really just got started on this backpack situation. I am leaning towards the A configuration, definitely. I think, as much as I like these enormous pointy guns, this sort of bulky backpack stuff going on here is very much appealing to me, but it looks like it's fairly straightforward to swap from one to the other anyway, so that will all go together. Anyway, it is essentially 11 o'clock, and that appears to be a pretty good stopping point. I think it's another reasonable distance to the next stopping point, so I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to stop here. I am still very pleased with how this has come out. I'm still very concerned. I'm still very concerned about some design decisions that were made, but design decisions were made, and it was not me who made them, so I can breathe easy on that front, I guess. Yeah, I'm going to probably dig into this further tomorrow, unless I get completely sidetracked playing Control. But there will be a stream tomorrow at some point. I haven't decided whether it's going to be in the afternoon or the evening. But at some point tomorrow, I will be back, probably with more of this. So I will wish everybody a pleasant evening. Thank you to those of you who've been here to keep me company while I've been doing this. I hope you all have a fantastic evening, what is left of it, or whatever time of day it is for you. And I will see people maybe tomorrow. I will stream at some point tomorrow, but I don't know exactly when. And then, yeah, I'm sure I will be streaming at some point over the weekend. I'm not sure when it's going to be though. We'll see. Yeah, info to come. That info will be provided at my Twitter account, which is at TremaineAlex. You can find previous streams archived at my YouTube channel, which is linked in the Twitch channel description here, because I am a nobody and I do not have a nice catchy YouTube channel name. It is a jumble of letters and numbers. So find the link in the channel description here, and you can find previous builds. There is a playlist for the real grade new that I built, and there is a playlist for the current build, which is actually not this. It's the full armor unicorn, the master grade full armor unicorn. There is a playlist for that as well. Everybody have a great evening. Thank you for being here, and I shall see you in the future.